Okay.
And so they would be more sensitive to the toxic effects of eggs than a regular person.
And no cholesterol, right?
Right, and that's aside from the cholesterol issue. The cholesterol affects their body in other negative ways with their blood circulation. So rather than to focus on the marketing of eggs that they're not so bad for you, why not just focus on something that doesn't have any bad side? Just replace the eggs with flaxseed in your recipes. You don't have to have eggs in any of your recipes. You can just choose a better alternative instead of trying to justify that eggs aren't so bad. Find something that doesn't have a bad side. And that's where these lifestyle classes can give you a better choice of choosing one versus the other, comparing it. And always, I'm not saying you can never have eggs. I'm just saying if you're doing it routinely, why not choose a safer choice?
Absolutely.
Just knowing that nobody in America, unless you eat gruel 3 times a day, is protein deficient. So why are we worried about it anyways?
And one other comment too. I used to see conflicting studies, you hear conflicting reports on it, so I thought, well, middle ground maybe is the way to go. But there's been comparisons made to the smoking industry, and some of their quotes released by the Freedom of Information Act says, doubt is our product. In other words, if there's 100 studies that say smoking is bad, all we need to do is get a few out to the public that say there's a benefit, and the public has that conflicting, they just throw up their hands and say, they don't know, forget about it, I'm just going to smoke my cigarette. And so, Gregor, for instance, he always makes comparisons between the smoking industry's playbook, their MO, and the egg industry or different food industries. All they have to do is throw out some conflicting reports. People hear eggs are bad, then you hear positive benefit for eggs. And so we go, well, which one do we believe? I don't know, pass me the eggs. We just throw up our hands and say, they don't know, and who cares? And we just have to be aware that the marketing industry is doing that on purpose to cause that doubt. So we don't know as the layman, and we just, well, at least there's 10 studies that say it's good, so I'm going to go for it. Where we need to kind of get behind that a little bit. Pick better foods that are great for you. You know, manure has fiber, right? That doesn't mean we eat that. So it's to stop thinking of food because it has this one good thing in it. I want something that has all great things, no bad things. And that's plants and vegetables, right? You know, meat has one particular good thing, protein, or, you know, iron. Okay, like I can't get that from other healthy food that has no risk whatsoever. So I've tried to switch my whole mentality of what is a healthy food, right?
Yeah, great, excellent, thank you. Yeah, and that's why, again, the eggs, the FDA's, Rieger said before, the FDA forbids eggs being labeled as safe or healthy, period. So, yes.
On here it says coffee reduced risk by 40%.
Yes, that was an interesting study of the antioxidant effects. Again, it has an anti-inflammatory effect, but it doesn't mean that I would recommend coffee because I don't. I wasn't going to mention that. But it's true that the caffeine in coffee is stimulatory. It can increase blood pressure, increase one's risk for this, that, and the other thing. But it does have a high antioxidant profile, which is why Starbucks is this conflicting thing. You know, these whole fast food industries, these whole food industries their livelihood depends on it, basically. And so you have to be cautious about all those things.
It doesn't say how much.
Yeah, well, I can check it out in a second.
Well, what about the Gerson therapy? I mean, they use coffee for their program to cleanse people to help them overcome cancer and other diseases too. So, but they...
Those are dealing with cancer patients. It's usually a short-term situation. With the coffee enemas and so forth, it can perk them up because the caffeine, boy, you give somebody that is weak and cancerous and they're wiping out and they're malnourished, and you put some coffee in them, and even by enema, even more so, boy, it'll pick them up, and it can revive their system. I've seen that happen before.
So it increases their metabolism?
The caffeine can increase the metabolism. It can help detox the liver.
The liver.
Foods and so forth. So there are pros and cons about it. It's not something I'd recommend long term.
Right.
But I have seen people do very well for short term with a lot of coffee.
Because I know they emphasize the detoxing, but then they implement a good vegan vegetarian diet. Where
Gerson isn't all vegan.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Well, what I've read, some of the things that I've read, I haven't researched all their stuff, but I saw
some of the
vegetarian.
supplements they have are like liver and digestive enzymes and this and that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Now I remember that.
So,
Yeah.
but, yeah, there's pros and cons. Every, did I see some more hands over here somewhere? So yeah, so if you look at arsenic, 358% exposure increases risk. Emotional stress. That's why it's so important for our lifestyle programs to be able to handle emotional stresses. I cannot tell you how many patients, most people that have health issues have too much emotional stress.
Don't they go hand in hand?
Yes. And the chicken or the egg, they do both feed and interact into itself and so forth. The egg avoidance, the coffee, the green leafy vegetables, the alcohol. Again, I'm not crazy about the alcohol. We know that red wines have the resveratrol, which do have high antioxidant potential, which do lower risks of heart disease and so forth. But why not get the red grape juice, the red grapes, which don't have the alcohol in it, which has all the complications there. Sugar-sweetened beverages as well as sugar substitutes, periodontal disease. The Eloways, Dr. Eloway and his family and all these folks, dentists in the crowd, they know about all the different periodontal diseases and the issues there. And it does significantly, almost, 225% up to 225%. And again, these are just in general populations, but in certain people it can increase it even greater as well as. So you just go down the list and you can see, but fiber has much to be recommended, as Dr. Myers was mentioning about the beans pulse, the fiber, and they found eggplant, nuts like almonds. When I think of almonds, I take almonds to work because if I'm too busy, if I'm going to grab one thing, it's going to be almonds to keep me going. And the reason why is because yes, it has a lot of fiber on it, a lot of good qualities, but one of my colleagues before, one of my professors, Dr. Ellsworth Wareham, he's about 102 now. He was one of those featured in that the National Geographic study and so forth. And he would say a handful of almonds could keep him going all day in the operating room when he's operating a heart. And so, he can't argue with his success at 102 years old and so forth. So I said, there's got to be something with almonds, even though the studies are showing that almonds, it's confirming more and more now that the almonds do have a significant benefit. Chia seeds and all these other things are helpful too. But just exciting to see all these things that are coming up and how we're getting out of the box with just a few things affecting diabetes, but now are all the different food choices. We can have better food choices, we can do better lifestyle changes as far as sleep, as far as exercise, as far as medication, and it sort of puts into perspective, yeah, well, what? Medicines, metformin can decrease our A1C by 1%. I've seen it decrease it more than that too, with lifestyle changes. But then if you consider the fact that lifestyle is much more potent than the best medication out there, the medications can proven to lessen the risk of heart disease and stroke and mortality. And so, why are we giving all these pills? I like to get people off their pills, which is why they come to me in the office a lot of times, rather than keep sustaining on them because of all these interactions and so forth. But there are some very good nutritional supplements in here, and you can see the percentages there. The cinnamon decreased by 0.5%, berberine 0.9%, ivy gourd by 0.6%, fenugreek by 1.4%, these A1C drops and so forth.
What's bourbon?
Pardon me?
The first one, the bourbon?
Berberine.
Yeah.
Isn't that Oregon grapefruit? I think it's Oregon grapefruit. It's from,
Oregon grape?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
For a botanist, I think it I
Berberine?
forgot the name, the genus and species name, but it has berber in there, if I remember right.
Oh,
And so, but it's, I believe it's from Oregon grape.
oh, okay, I know that, yeah.
Cinnamon can be contradicted in some medicines.
Cinnamon can have interactions and so forth. They're finding more and more. There's pros and cons about all these things, so you have to be cautious about. Yes, you have to be very careful about all these things. But just to give you an idea, some of these issues and so forth. But in the diabetes realm, the cinnamon does seem to have some definite benefits. But you can again choose if you look at all these percentage points and so forth, you can pick and choose and see which ones you want to do. Again, realizing the lifestyle changes in the diet and nutritional studies, they're probably underestimating it more than medications. And medicine companies will try and maximize the results, whereas diet and nutritional studies, they don't have them out there. And I've seen it personally, you can see dramatic changes, much greater than what they're talking about.
So certain foods could be used for medicinal purposes. Some you can eat throughout your whole life, but some for a short duration, like for example the coffee and maybe even the cinnamon, because as it was mentioned, cinnamon does have pros and cons on it.
Yes. So we do, cinnamon's not one that I promote regularly in my office because of those controversial issues and the fact that it can irritate the stomach, it can irritate people, it's a spice, just like spicy hot sauce and spicy, cinnamon is a little spicy and it has it's sharp. If you look at a microscope, it has little sharp things on it that can irritate the stomach and so forth. So you do have to be cautious about all those things. Some of the ones of my favorites, Memorica Charancha, which is bitter melon. I just planted 2 bitter melon plants the other day. That's excellent. And in the Orient, they use a lot of bitter melon. When we were at Weimar before, we could get a bitter melon juice, a fresh bitter melon juice extract, and we saw people going from insulin-dependent diabetics, not type 2 diabetics, but insulin-dependent diabetics, going like from 30, 40 units of insulin down to 10 to 15 units of insulin. So it's a powerful help, this bitter melon. Somehow it works, I don't know how.
There's a place in Chico that is a whole, they grow it, commercially. It's a big place, yeah.
Good,
Real
yeah.
successful.
So maybe that's where I don't know where we're getting our supply before, but I know that
You have to be
the
used
market
to
store,
it.
it is very good. It does very good. But Memorica Charancha I like. I also like the magnesium for many reasons on effects on the heart. I also recommend the chromium. Chromium has a lot of studies on it. We used to use that regularly at Weimar also for our patients, diabetic patients. Make sure the vitamin D levels are normalized because unfortunately the diabetics, most people that I test, probably I would say 80% of the people I test, if I just test off the street, anybody that's coming in for diabetes, for whatever conditions, I check their vitamin D levels and 80% of them are deficient. And the ones that are normalized usually are the ones that are supplementing with vitamin D. It's a big thing. All these beans are great, the legumes are great, the grains, the vegetables, fruits, all those whole foods, not fruit juices. All those are wonderful.
Do we have to worry about the K that much?
Vitamin K,
Yeah. I see it once in a while. I never, it doesn't come on the thing like vitamin D and, it's.
Vitamin K usually you get from fruits and vegetables. And so what they worry about usually is if people that are on Coumadin, which is a blood thinner,
Right.
and they eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, then the Coumadin is not working. Because if they're trying to keep their blood thin because of an irregular heartbeat like atrial fibrillation or something
Right.
like that, which can cause turbulence in the blood system around the heart, which can cause blood clots, which can cause strokes and so forth.
Right.
And so if one's trying to take a medicine like Coumadin or some blood thinner to keep the blood thin so that they don't have a stroke, and you're taking a lot of fruits and vegetables and you're not monitoring it carefully, and if there's a lot of variety in that, then that can throw off the Coumadin levels and people can have strokes easier and so forth. So you've got to be cautious about that.
Okay.
Isn't that what they give babies when they're born, is vitamin K?
Yes, because babies are vitamin K deficient at birth, then a lot of times if they're going to have a circumcision especially or some surgical procedure, they would consider giving vitamin K. It used to be routine for everybody, all the kids and so forth. But nowadays they're getting more and more away from that because they're also getting less circumcisions and so forth. But like biblically, you have to wait a certain amount of days before you're circumcising because by then, a week later or so, the vitamin K is kicked in and so you have less instance of bleeding. And I remember in residency way back when, there was one baby we heard about afterwards that had had a circumcision and actually bled to death. And don't know what happened, we just heard about it, somehow it happened. So usually if you circumcise, you don't, at birth, in the hospital, you clamp, and you don't have to, because the blood vessels are so small, you don't usually have to cauterize, you don't usually need to do surgery or anything like that with stitches to stop the bleeding, but apparently, so that's one case I know definitely that there was a problem. So it does happen occasionally, very rarely. So this is a list of all sorts of things here, and let me see what, I should see what kind of
Well, they say, well, if you have it later, it'll pay. If you have it now, the insurance will take care of it.
Insurance issues are such a difficult thing to deal with sometimes. But I'm not sure how much time we have left. What time? Pardon?
10:30.
10:30, okay, and it's now, is it?
It's about 25 after.
Okay, so yeah, we better wrap it up shortly. So I want to point on the back page, I want to say something like this. Basically, therapeutic review, if you had to choose a certain amount of things, you can see the grade A's, grades B's and C's and so forth. So if it's pointing up, these are the #1 points to focus on for starters. Lifestyle is an A1. Exercise, diet, and then chromium, and magnesium, and cinnamon, well, I'm not as keen about that, and then metformin and so forth, and bariatric surgery if they're really obese.
How about the fenugreek? I mean, it's been, it's on the other page, and I noticed it's here.
It's a B.
You didn't, it's a what?
A B, graded. They have safety and efficacy grades, and there's A, B's, and C's, and A is good studies, and B's are neutral studies, and C's are adverse studies. You don't want to do it because it has adverse effects and so forth. But among the A's, B's, and C's, and they have qualifications, you know, if it's definite, or if it's just a little bit, if it helps a little bit, but it's not the greatest, but still you're heading in the right direction, versus if you're neutral, if it's the arrow's going straight across, you're neutral and so forth. So it just sort of gives you an idea of prioritizing and interesting studies. And then notice those websites under there, they have a lot of different, 6 different websites there for helping also. So, there was also some comments or questions about epigenetic studies and muscular dystrophy and so forth. And there are a lot of research going on in epigenetics. Epigenetics is a study of basically how the environment, things you do to your body, turns on genes in your body to express certain conditions like diabetes, like muscular dystrophy and so forth, like thyroid conditions or Alzheimer's and this and that and the other thing. And basically there's a whole list of different things. Nothing is definite as far as therapeutic effects, but these are just some of the studies I picked off the internet on regenerating muscle and Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, and it talks about HDAC inhibitors, histine amylases or something like that. And they have all these different studies. But basically, all these studies are early. They are finding that they are influencing in animals, and they're developing drugs, of course, to try and correct the problems on these conditions. But it's not readily available in humans at this time. It's experimental, but there is progress that is being advanced. And a lot of these have to do with methylation factors. And if you talk about epigenetics, a lot of times we focus on epigenetics. And that's the tricky thing, is because some of the things that help with the methylation problems are like the B12s and the folic acids and so forth that we prescribe for those conditions. But
So epigenetics is what's going on in our environment, how it affects our body, our mind and our body.
sure, and how, whether it be out externally or internally with food and nutritional supplements and so forth. So they're doing a lot of studies in these areas. I mean, multi-million-dollar grants. I think John Hopkins got like a $30 million grant to study how epigenetics is going to be affecting disease and so forth from the government recently. So there's big bucks going into it because it has tremendous potential. But as of today, unfortunately, we don't have those medications, those drugs, those supplements there, but we do know that by a vegan diet, whole foods, plant-based, same things that affect diabetes, that affect strokes, that affect heart attacks, the anti-inflammatories and antioxidant factors, which are the main common pathways of disease expression, if we keep those things calmed down, that's going to give us our best opportunities for the future for a whole life. So, if there's any other questions, we'll take questions afterwards, but maybe we can close since it's about 10:30. Erwin, would you offer?
Okay. Ms. Barhead. Gracious Father, it's always a privilege to understand our body and the complex health that you have created. Thank you for helping us understand it in more simple terms so we can make wise choices this week to improve our health and to feel better and within more energy to enjoy your creation. We pray this all in the name of Jesus. Amen.